And the next day was my birthday! I mentioned I want to do something bigger, and my original plan was just a basic party, just a basic house party. So I got this idea sort of from, there's a vlogger I really like named Nikhil Jansi, and I believe it was her boyfriend, he did a toast bar or something for his birthday. And I was sitting there thinking like, man, I don't really like toast that much to like have a bar, but that's a really easy food. That sounds nice to have a really easy food. I was talking with some friends kind of like, what's your favorite food? Trying to like get ideas for the party. We talked about a bunch of different foods, but in the end we're just like, oh man, but like a grilled cheese. Grilled cheese is so good. And I was like, that's it. So we literally bought like 2 kinds of cheeses, like, you know, the Kraft singles you gotta have, then Gruyere, because it's an easy melting cheese. We got some bacon if people want to put bacon on it. We got some chicken, like deli meat, if people want to make a panini style. You know, the mayo lovers versus the butter people, we got both of those. We had our big griddle out so people could put stuff together. And then we got tomato soup or ketchup. I'm a ketchup person, that's what I grew up with. A lot of people think that's very weird, but we never got tomato soup with our grilled cheeses when I was growing up. It was only ketchup. We had all the bases covered for that. And then I was like, what if by some odd chance no one likes grilled cheese? And I was like, what's something really easy we can make? And I was like, anime conventions. I love anime conventions, and a staple there is they make a giant pot of rice and they just like dole it out and give you like soy sauce. And we have like furikake and soy sauce and like rice vinegar, and we have nori, like we had whatever you would want to put in it, you could put in it. So that was our carb loaded thing. And then I also was like, carbonated beverages, and we bought a bunch of pop. So that was the overarching theme, and I was just like, okay, we're just gonna hang out. I'll have some board games and card games available, or we could just play Mario Kart on the TV, or we could play Jackbox games, or we could just chat, whatever you want to do. But, and this kind of ties into that, something I've always wanted to do is a murder mystery party. For my 30th, I originally tried to write my own murder mystery party, but I just don't know if what I've written will like go well. Like, I'm worried that maybe I threw in too many red herrings and then people won't get the actual murderer, or maybe it's too obvious who the murderer is. And I was sort of just Googling how to throw a murder mystery to see if maybe I could make it more simple for myself. And I actually found a website that was having like a sale on murder mystery packages, and they said they could do it for up to 20 people. And I was like, oh my god, that would be great. I mean, I had invited more than 20 people, less showed up, but I was like, that would be perfect if I had like a 20-person thing. And it was a little expensive. I think it was like 30 or 40 bucks for this thing that I just bought online and then printed off myself. But it seemed like a decent deal just to get my foot in the water and see what a different murder mystery party would be like, so I knew how I could do my own. And so I bought it, and I printed it all off, put it together, gave everybody characters. Oh, but the thing I didn't mention is I also made this carb-themed. The name of the murder mystery I chose is called The Great Bake Down. So it's very much a ripoff of The Great British Bake Off. And then when I told a friend of mine about all of this, she asked me, like, so are we actually going to do a baking contest? And I was like, what? Because that had not crossed my mind. And she said, oh, we could do a baking competition. We could have whoever wants to can like bring baked goods, and then you have like I hadn't planned a dessert, so this kind of worked out perfectly. So yeah, whoever wanted to could bring a dessert, and some people who didn't bring a dessert, they could be the judges, and we could decide who the winner was. And then they have a 3D printer, so they printed off trophies. They were originally going to print off like one first place trophy, but apparently the first 2 they made broke, so they ended up making a first, second, and third place trophy. And it was actually really fun. So how the day went out, I want to do all of this, by the way. So we decided to do a murder mystery luncheon instead of a dinner. So 2:30, all my friends show up. We just kind of hang out. We're waiting for everybody to show up. We're playing like Mario Kart, chatting, doing whatever. Since I did a double party thing where I did the luncheon was the murder mystery, and then at 5 was when we were going to have dinner, and like everybody who didn't want to do the murder mystery but wanted to come party, they would come then. But what ended up happening is we're playing games, and we're literally waiting for one of my friends, but since I had sort of double booked the day, she thought everything started at 5. She didn't realize the murder mystery was earlier in the day. She just sort of agreed to it thinking it was at 5, even though I had sent out invitations saying it was at 2:30. So she rushed over here, but she like wasn't going to be here in time. Her drive is a decent ways. So we decided to do the the food part first. So we did the bake-off first. So I think 4 people brought desserts, which kind of felt bad since we only had 3 prizes. And they were, my friend made s'mores bars, I made a butterscotch apple cake, and someone made pistachio cookies. That was actually from like the Great British Bake Off cookbook. And then another friend made lemon bars. And so some of our friends deliberated, they decided, and it was actually kind of funny. So my friend who got 4th place, she had actually made peanut butter cookies, and then she dunked them in chocolate and powdered sugar and said, all right, these are, what are they called? Puppy chow. She said they were puppy chow cookies. But she's like, oh, it's not enough for everybody, so I made these s'mores bars instead to hopefully be a crowd pleaser. But everybody was like, you would have won if you'd entered the peanut butter cookies, but since you didn't and it was a s'mores bar, she was in 4th place. And I was like, oh no, that sucks. Don't tell her that. But it ended up, I won. I look at, they made this, they said they had like a poker trophy and then a little stand from something else, and they did a little cupcake, and that's how they 3D printed it, and they painted it. They hand painted it gold, which I thought was like, I'm like, oh, that's so much work, but it's also so stinking cute. So yeah, I got 1st place at my own contest, which felt a little bad, but they're just like, nah, you deserve it, you won. And I was like, yay. And then someone had to go, and then my friend finally showed up. So then we did the murder mystery party. It was, I will say right now, it was a lot more scripted than I expected, but one cool thing about it is that you can replay, there's replay value. So basically, you just kind of have to listen really carefully to how people are talking and how they phrase things, because anyone can be the murderer, and you pick the murderer in the middle. So everybody introduces themselves, everybody like spreads rumors about other people and says like, oh, I heard this about this person, oh, I heard this about this person, like, you know, telling everybody like potential motives. And then after that, that's when the murderer name is drawn. So yeah, he gave out like letters A through whatever, and at that point he lifts up like, okay, whoever has the letter M, you've got to read the murderer parts, because the way it was written was there was an innocent like lines that you have, and there's murderer lines that you have, and you had to just say the murderer lines instead of the innocent lines. And basically how you win the murder mystery party is you have to be the first to write down who the murderer was, and then also write their motive. What we did was we raised hands so that the detective could take them from us like one by one, so he knew what order they were in. So what he did is, once we'd all put down what we thought the answer was, he took out the innocent names. So he's like, okay, if you're letter E, read, like, tell us what you have to say. And then it was all the innocent people saying why they were innocent. And then the last one was the murderer. And then they told us why they were the murderer. And then we were told who won it. I won that too. I was like, no. Someone did get their answer in before me, but they got the motive wrong. But to kind of make it more fun, I had a vote for, I think it was like best persona. So one of my friends, she put on like a southern accent and like really got into the role. And so she was voted like the best performer of the night.
I try to use all natural ingredients in my bakes, but the judges always tell me they don't taste right.
I also had an MVP because I thought there'd be more improvising happening, and there wasn't really. But anyway, so everybody, the MVP they voted for was the guy who played the detective who like helped get all the work done. So it's like, yay! Because he did the most work without actually getting the fun of participating. Even though he chose to do that, it was just kind of like, yay, nice. And then yeah, after that we hung out, we played I'm on Observation Duty all together, just sitting around the TV. If you haven't played, it's essentially a horror game where you are flipping through cameras in a house, and every so often something will change in a room. Sometimes it's something very obvious, sometimes it's something really subtle, and you have to try to figure out what changed and then report that the change happened. Because if too many things get different, you lose. And it's really fun to play as a group because some people notice stuff that other people don't. And sometimes everybody misses something. You're just like, how do we all miss that the next time you start the game and see what it was supposed to look like? But yeah, it was a really good time. Everybody enjoyed the food, by the way. The food also happened. That happened before Observation Duty did. And that went really well. And yeah, I was stoked. And then we kept bringing out the desserts to like chomp on later. So because we had so much extra. So it was awesome. And I would 10 out of 10 do it again.